Good morning, Rumer. This is our second part of the interview. Hoping everything's well with you, and thank you very much for allocating time for to talk to us. So let's go back to where we were. You released a new album called Into Colors in November 2015 in the UK, Ireland, and Japan, peaking to number 12 on the UK charts. That's pretty good. And the album was released worldwide in 2017. I noticed the first single, Dangerous, is very up-tempo number, and it was released in every radio. I think I was playing a lot. Feel free to elaborate what you recall, what you remember about that album.
Well, Dangerous was a song that when was it? I remember the first bit, "Is your love too dangerous?" And I immediately said, and I can hear it on the tape. Oh, I said, "Oh, that's disco. That sounds like disco." And so I tend to go with it. If the song is presenting a certain way, I tend to just follow the song.
Yeah.
And that's really, so we decided to take it all the way there. If it sounded a little bit disco, we thought, well, let's just do disco.
Yeah. I think the disco is like the first probably 20, 30 seconds. Then it became like a sort of normal beat, I suppose. But it works out well. And
that song is about, and as I spoke to you, about previously when I described to you, how unwell I got in the music industry.
Yeah,
Dangerous was a song about feeling like, why am I going back into this? I'd spent a year out of the music business. I was just getting better. I was just starting to feel better. And I thought, I'm really going to go back into this situation that made me ill. And so Dangerous was a song about, I've only just begun, I've only just started to feel better, babe. Like, it was just like, it's about, it sounds like a love song, but it was actually about my fear of going back into the industry again.
How you manage? What's happened that year?
That year or the year before?
No, the year before. In between, when you say, no, I need to do something else for a living, and then a year after you decided, well, I'm going back. This is my life. That's what I like, and I need to put myself together and so forth.
I mean, I just sort of self-funded myself for a year writing in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And really was dragged back into the music industry, kind of kicking and screaming to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I was very hesitant to go back into that situation because I wasn't fully recovered, So even on the album cover, I look a bit scared, like I look a bit like nervous.
Yeah.
So Into Color was really about recovery and about keeping, just going back into a situation that was scary for me because, I'd really got very sick, got very ill.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you got better, and I'm glad you continued, because after that you end up releasing a lot of records. It's difficult to be a musician, I think, or an artist in general. No, just a musician, could be a painter or writer. See, I buy CDs, I buy records, Blu-rays, I go to concert. I have no idea about the emotional states of the personality or the psychological issue that a particular band and musician is going through, or if they have a good night's sleep or not. I just show up at 8, see a great show from 8 to 10, I go home and go to work the day after. So, but for your end, it's completely different, right? So
it is, and that's the thing. At the end of the day, no one wants to know either, and no one cares. When you're on stage and you just gotta, everything has to fall away, and you just have to perform to the best of your ability and do good work consistently. Nobody wants to know really about the difficulties. They just want to enjoy the music, and that is how it should be. That's exactly how it should be. But Into Color was a record that I'm not really singing out on, like I'm singing almost quietly, because it was hard for me to, like Rob, in a way, Rob, my husband, really kind of pulled me through that record. He was instrumental in getting me back in the saddle,
Yeah, I know what you mean. And that album was a foundation for your 2015 tour days, right?
Yes, did the 2015 tour, UK and USA.
Yeah. Is the crowd very different from England to United States, or you notice different, or?
The Americans are a lot more expressive.
Yeah.
They're a lot more in touch with their emotions. So they express their emotions more demonstratively. But the British audiences still feel emotions, but they don't always express it demonstratively. So, you get different energy from the audience for sure.
Yeah. Wait until you go to Latin America, people will go crazy. The energy of the crowd, the emotion of the people in the United States. If you go to Latin America, you need to multiply it by 3.
Well, I have to definitely. Now you've encouraged me to go. So
yeah. Oh yeah, I will keep on pushing you going to that direction, because it's a good market for you to get into. And people in Argentina and Chile and Mexico, they really love your stuff. And do you suffer from performance anxiety? Do you get nervous every time, or is how you overcome that?
Yes,
I mean, the 10 minutes before you go on the stage.
It's very difficult because it's really nothing you can do about it. I tried everything. I tried hypnotherapy, tried beta blockers. Actually, the beta blockers are quite good. I think they actually work pretty well. But I do suffer from anxiety and a fear before I go on. But, I'm trying to overcome that. And partly why I'm doing this woman-to-woman tour is about overcoming that, because I'm trying to get used to being on the stage in a less pressurizing situation. In fact, that was one of my biggest motivations for doing this tour, was to try and sort of trick my body into being less frightened on stage, because I wasn't carrying the whole show. And so far I haven't had anxiety on this tour, so that's been really, really positive. But I think the material, like some of the Nashville Tears material and the Bacharach material, gives me more anxiety than the other material, because it's very complex, it's very lyrical, it's very precise. I think in a way I've made a rod for my own back in terms of the scope of the material, because it's difficult material. So I'm having to, now my shows are kind of, they have quite a range of material that some are more difficult to sing than others. So it's an ongoing journey for me, to be honest with you, Claudio.
Yeah,
is improving.
Yeah, and it. I mean, I get nervous sometimes in interviews or in normal situations, the day-to-day life, right? But I cannot imagine, going in front of X number of people in a particular venue, in a particular city, and it's tough, man.
Well, I'm a very ordinary person. I don't have special powers. I don't have any special powers than anybody else, and so, I would be as frightened as you or anybody to get on stage in front of people.
Yeah.
Just something that I must do, and I must be brave and just go out there and do it.
Yeah, and imagine that the first 5 minutes, the first song, then after that you're comfortable again, and everything goes. You take like a job. You go. You continue, right? So I suppose the first song is harder than the rest, because then you are in front of the audience and people are applauding, and you're getting some warmth from the public. People in general, they don't understand the amount of work that goes into making an album. The energy, the finance, the number of people involved. It's like a huge enterprise. Feel free to elaborate on kind of whatever you can mention in an
Well,
end-to-end album, when you got an idea to how we want to put this together, where it's going to be recorded, who is going to be
mhm.
engaging, do we need this kind of people, backup vocals, how we pay for it? Okay, it's going to cost X number of dollars. How we, what's the return of our investment? All kind of stuff.
Well, these days,
Yeah.
Claudio, there's no room for error. There's no margin for error. In the past, I think when they made records in the 70s, they had such big budgets that, you could make a record, scrap it and start again, that kind of thing. But these days, the budgets are so tight that if you have a string date or if you have a session, you really haven't got any room for error. So the preparation becomes more important. So the pre-production element becomes more important. So in order to get the most out of your string date or the most out of your rhythm section dates, which are expensive, I've found that doing lots and lots of pre-production helps. So make sure that you've recorded it. Maybe the song has been recorded or demoed 3 or 4 times before in different ways, different styles. Like, make sure you're absolutely sure about how you want to execute the song, the tempos, the keys, the arrangement, all that needs to be done way in advance so that you're happy with it. Before you go in, because there isn't any, if you make any mistakes or if you don't like something on the day, you can't do it again. There's no budget to do it again. So, it is more challenging to make records of high quality that kind of can stand up to the records that were made back in the 70s and 80s without the budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, pre-production definitely helps, and doing a lot of work beforehand, and also, knowing where to spend money and knowing where not to spend money. We generally spend money on strings, and horns and orchestras or anything like that, and then we try and do as much as we can at home as well. So there's kind of a mixture of home studio and big studio, expensive kind of sessions. So my records generally have a combination of both. But yeah, there's an awful lot of people involved in making a record, and that's part of the pleasure of it, that it does employ people. It employs studios, it employs musicians, it employs designers, photographers. There's a lot of people involved. And it's just it's a wonderful thing to do from start to finish, and it's incredibly rewarding.
Do you worry about, or your husband worried that this producer that okay, if you add everything up and it costs, I don't know, $50,000 or whatever to create a record, right, from end to end, how you want to record the money? I mean, you do the stuff you do because you like it, but at the end of the day, it's a business, right? You go on the road because you need to make a living, and you will not sell that many records, but eventually, if the record is good, you say, well, we are not going to record the money on selling merchandise at the end of the show, but people like the record. We have received good reviews. We'll go on the road and then record the money on the touring.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Generally, a record budget is like, the deals go like this, where here's the budget to make a record and you get to keep the change.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
But like the artist, well, you can keep the change. Whatever you don't spend on the record, keep the change. But there's never any change, because you end up spending most of it on the record. Because especially for the Bacharach album, I think there was a budget of like $100,000 or something. It was like, I'm making a Bacharach album that was going to cost $100,000. So that pretty much I did for free, that record. I didn't get, that was just, we needed to use that money, all of that money, to make the record. And that is generally how it's been. There's hardly been anything left over. But in terms of touring, touring as well is difficult to make money. It's difficult to make money touring. It's difficult to make money with records. For many years now, I've just been looking at it thinking, well, this is kind of like almost like a charity. I'm just sort of keeping the lights on in the studio so I can keep making more. But I'm not. It's not a business. It's not a bit. Certainly not a business. It's more like a not-for-profit type of thing. I'm able to keep working and to keep making music, but that's it, really. There isn't really money in this business.
Really?
There's no middle class in the music industry. Just like the middle class is being hollowed out in society. I'm a middle class, artist in that sense. I'm not at the, I take great care in making high quality work, but it's not really a profitable business.
Wow, I didn't know that. I knew, but not to that extent, because right, when you go on tour, you need to catch a fly, a tour manager, you need to stay in a hotel, somebody pick you up from the hotel to the venue, and then venue to the hotel, and then fly back, blah, 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 right? So it's a lot of expenses involved in touring, right? Unless
touring,
you are,
touring is particularly expensive because there's just a lot to pay for. The venues take 25% of the merchandise. They take, you have to pay the venues. You've got musicians. You've got hotels. You've got travel. Travel's doubled, and because of the gas prices and everything. Just a lot of things have gone up, and it's not a highly profitable business for me at the moment, but I'm very grateful to be still able to keep working and keep making good work.
Yeah, you have, so don't stop. Easy for me to say, but it's a lot of work. And do you have like a formula for writing songs? I mean, you start with a piano guitar, or you are in the shower, or you're in the supermarket and you see an ad and you say, "Oh, that, good lyrics," or there's no formula to writing good songs.
Well, generally, it's sort of start with a sentiment or a feeling, of something you want to express.
Yeah.
And then work with that. But each song is unique, and each song's journey is unique. So there is no formula. But there are things you can do to make the ground more fertile, and generally that's, just daily practices that put you in a more receptive state, because ultimately it's about receiving inspiration and stuff like that. So no, it's all a mystery to me. It's all a very mysterious process.
You have like a journal? Yeah,
sorry?
Go ahead.
I said, after you've got some inspiration and something that feels like it's got a soul, then you can bring in the craft, which is the stuff that you've learned, the understanding of song structure and, all of the songwriting, mechanics. But that, I find that comes later, once you've got a soul, like like the idea has a soul.
Do you have like a journal where you write stuff on a daily basis? That's like a good idea. I don't know how to put it together or what's the meaning, but I will write it down and then you revisit that. You're looking back for inspiration, like a poet who writes stuff all the time, and then
absolutely, I have a journal of several.
Yeah, good for you, man. So you need to be like you said, be an emotional state to be receptive, right? And from there, the quality of the artist can be receptive and emotional in some place in order to put something together, a good song, a good album, suppose, right?
And also you've got to live your life. You've got to live life, and you've got to be open to experiences and be curious about anything and everything. So there's an openness and a curiosity in general, and time has to pass. And the reason why Seasons of My Soul was called Seasons of My Soul was because I used to have an apartment. I used to live in an apartment which had a bedroom facing the park. It was high up and it looked out on the park. And I had written these songs, and I'd been carrying these songs around, like Slow and Take Me As I Am and all these songs for so many years. I'd been holding them holding them. And I was watching the seasons change, and I realized that they were still relevant. Like they kept coming around again, like seasons. So which is why I called the album Seasons of My Soul, because as I watched the seasons change outside my window, the songs still they all had a season too. They would come around again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Some of I'm very sensitive, I suppose. Some songs or album or artists knock me out of balance. I go to places with the music, right? So whether it's a beat song or I like the lyrics, I put my headphone and I go places, right? So music is magic to me. I don't know what it does to me. I don't know how to describe it. It's just some people cannot live without it, So
it's transportive.
Yeah.
It's and also it's company as well. It's like it makes you feel like you're not alone. I found that when I was young and I was obsessed with the movie musicals, I found it transportive. It would take you somewhere else. It would transport you somewhere, and that's magic. That is magical.
So you will kind of, everybody have their own problems, their own issues and family and job and relationship, whatever. And you used to go to a musical to kind of escape for a couple of hours to your own reality and immerse in somebody else's world. And then after the gig, after the show, after the whatever, the musical, you will go back to your normal life. And the problem didn't go away, obviously, but you were happy for 2 hours and been able to escape your own reality, right? Which is everybody does that, right? So it's a good way to put it, actually. Yeah, it's like an escape. And I don't know. A lot of people have asked me the same question. I in my case, my dad had in Chile had a lot of music, so I began listening to music when I was a baby, and of course, I didn't like the music, but when I was 14, I discovered kind of rock and roll bands from the UK 80s, and I said, man, I really like this stuff. And I began sort of collecting records when I was 14, I think. And then I was able to come to the United States, and I'm glad that I did that. I knew that music was very important to me. Always had been very important, but I don't know to which extent. So I cannot play, I cannot perform. I don't know how to read music, but I thought, well, I want to keep on buying records, CDs, and I'm very lucky that I'm able here where I live to see close to, I don't know, 40, 50 shows a year at least. And some are more expensive than others, right? So the big names are more expensive, but I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do that. And then now, like a couple of years ago, when I began doing the interviews and calling different people over the world, it, all of a sudden you have a record for somebody that I bought, I don't know, 40 years ago or something, and then now I'm talking to a person. It's unbelievable. So I'm very fortunate, very lucky. I never thought I would be able to do this kind of stuff. It was, I think I asked you a little bit about this question, and so 1 minute you were, where you were relatively unknown, and some years later you end up appearing on a stage with people like Elton John, Bacharach, Hall, Carpenter, Carly Simon, not to mention performing at the White House in 2012. Do you look back at that, and you kind of examine your life, and man, you were like a little girl trying to make it, and you went back, your mom was sick, and you went back and forth, and you had like a dream, and then now 2022, you go back and say, man, it cannot be that bad, because I've been with a lot of famous artists at the White House, and people still come to see me.
I'm very grateful. And it was miraculous, really. It was a hell of a thing to get that record out, Seasons of My Soul. People have no idea how much what I had to do to get that past the powers that be. I was being rejected for years, so that record would very nearly wouldn't exist. It was just, I had to just keep going until somebody did see what I saw in it, but no, I do need to reflect a bit more on what I've already done and all the amazing things I've done. It's pretty incredible, really. It's pretty incredible, all the things that I actually have done.
Record label rejected you? You send a tape or a demo, and I don't like it, we don't like it, we don't like it.
Well, people would come to my shows. I would, sing the songs, and they would A&Rs would come, and they would say, this isn't for us, or whatever.
Wow. I'm glad you didn't give up, though.
Thank you.
It could have been easy to give up, but you didn't. So it's,
you can't give up. That's the point. That's part of the initiation.
Yeah.
It's that if you have the tenacity to get past that initiation, then you stand a chance of surviving the business once you get into it. I realized very quickly that the music business is so aggressive, it's so violent, that it's so sort of spiritually violent. It's almost like kryptonite. It's like it's poison in many ways to the artist, which is ironic considering they're supposed to be this kind of handshake or relationship, this sort of symbiosis. But it's almost like the minute you step into the music industry as a creative person, the clock starts ticking, and you just get weaker and weaker and weaker.
Really? They take a lot out of you, out of your.
It's just a profound value clash at every level. It's an incompatibility that is so fundamental that it's just unhealthy. So, you can only dip in and out of it. You can't really sustain it for very long because it will make you ill. People have died. I mean, there are artists who, we see them all the time that have died.
Or committed suicide or whatever because they cannot take it anymore,
or the drug addiction.
But
then people focus on the addiction, but not the mental health condition or the stresses that are underlying those addictions, or what leads you to addiction, or what leads, that vulnerability. So no, it's to be a musician. you know, like I said in my song, it can be dangerous.
Some people don't seek help, unfortunately, right? So, and they keep it to themselves, and they start, closing down by itself, and they don't seek help, mental health, or psychologists, psychiatrists, whatever, and eventually they cannot take anymore, and then they start doing pills and drugs, and they just.
It doesn't. Sometimes, sometimes the stressful thing is what you're doing, and you need to stop doing it. Sometimes you have to remove the stressors, but the stressors, when you've got a schedule that's full and you're ill, then to cancel, it's not always possible for artists, especially the more successful ones, to cancel a year or 2 years of scheduling.
Yeah. Plus, if you stop canceling the show, you don't have any money coming in, right? So
it's not just that. I think it's the brutality of
the brutality. Yeah.
The promoters, they'll say, well, we won't book you again if you cancel. They don't care. There's no sensitivity to your being ill.
I see. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're ill. You just didn't, you didn't do it. So we'll book someone else next time. That kind of thing.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No sympathy. And it was difficult at the beginning because you were a female versus a male, or the same is for everybody?
That was very interesting, being a female, because I didn't understand. I never experienced sexism really before, in my life. And until I was in the music industry, I didn't know I didn't understand what it really felt like to be sort of diminished or sort of reduced to like the chick singer, the term, the artist. And interestingly, in the music industry, there is a culture of artists sort of mocking, or artists blaming, or artists sort of, oh, the artist, they're a bit crazy, or they're stupid, or there is a sort of culture of that artist blaming. So if something goes wrong, they'll blame the artist. I mean, this is a whole different discussion. I mean, and also I can only speak from my individual experience.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure there are other people who've had experiences that are completely different to mine. But personally, I did find it infuriating that I wasn't allowed to attend meetings. And I was told that if I came to the meetings, then it would be pointless, because then they couldn't talk about me, and then they wouldn't say anything because I was there.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and I'm like, well, I just like to be collaborative. Like, well, I just want to be part of a discussion about my own career and my own thing. Like, can I not just come and I was very collaborative, but that's not how they work.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's very refreshing for me, hear from you, your experience. I'm quite sure it happens to a lot of people. Just as I say before, I buy a record, I buy a CD, a vinyl, whatever, and have no idea how the pain and the tears.
Well, it's record industry.
It's tough, man.
We're survivors at the end of the day. It's like, I feel like I'm a record industry survivor because of the experience I had. And I know other people have had those experiences too. Some people haven't had that experience at all, but some people don't make it out alive. And that's just the fact. But that doesn't mean that I'm not grateful for the opportunity and for the experience, and that I'm not glad I did it. I'm just glad that I didn't. I'm glad that I made it through. Like, I'm glad that I'm okay now, But it's not always, and also to be fair on the record companies, it's not always their fault, but they have a